many four-letter words can I use on that?
Don't get taken down. Figure it out. Like, find a way to not get taken down, even if there's a minute left.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
We have an amazing culture within our program, and we build it. We don't buy it. We build it.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is Virginia Tech head coach Tony Robie. Coach, good to talk to you. Wrestling's right around the corner. I look at my calendar, and it's middle of October, so I'm just like, well, it's time to start gearing up with a little more preview for the upcoming season. So we'll just start right there. I mean, you guys had a very exciting summer, coming off another good season in 2025, and here we are just a couple weeks away from the start of the next campaign here in 25-26.
Yeah, I think we're about 2 weeks out from our first competition, which is the Southeast Open up in Roanoke, and we've got Eddie Ventresca wrestling in the All-Star match on November 1st up there at Rutgers. So yeah, we're kind of on the verge of kicking things off here, and it's good because I feel like we were talking with our team last week, like. This is kind of a tough time of year because guys are, you're getting your weight down. You're not competing. You're not traveling. There's an element of fun that goes along with getting on a bus and traveling and competing and wrestling other guys. School is getting a little bit more difficult at this point in the semester. For our young guys, the newness of being at Virginia Tech is starting to wear off. So, you've got to really be able to deal with the monotony of the last, 4 or 5 weeks and the next 2 weeks. And then once we start to compete and travel, we kind of enter a different phase of the year and of the season. And I think it's more enjoyable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you go from the summer training where guys are competing internationally, whether it's, their age groups at U20, U23 or competing for senior level spots or whatever the case may be, there's a freer aspect, so to speak, with that, especially the guys that are still in college, where it's like they're not worried about, as you mentioned, the academic portion of it as well, and just being locked into, all right, wrestling room, lifting, classroom, bed, repeat. So how have those guys been able to deal with, as you mentioned before, the monotony of that with competition just a couple weeks around the corner here?
Good. I think it's harder for the young guys, for the freshmen. They're away from home for the first time. So we actually gave our guys last week. We gave them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. A bunch of guys went home, which I think that's always a nice thing to be able to do to kind of allow them to get back, see some family, or just hang out here if they want to kind of switch the routine up just a little bit. And I think you have to be smart with the way you approach your training. Try to do some things that are fun, throw some games in there, go play soccer, go play football, have some days that are maybe a little less structure, but yeah, you have to be able to read the guys too, and be able to have a pulse on how they're feeling and how guys are feeling individually, and approach everybody a little bit differently. And, I think that all starts with the kind of relationship that you have with them and the ability and the comfort level for them to come to you and talk to you, have those conversations, whether it's sitting against the wall after practice or if it's in your office or whatever it might be through text in the evening. But it's good, man. We're excited. We've got our young group is great. We're super excited about the future of the program. We've got as much depth right now as we've ever had in our room. I mean, there's not a lot of easy days for anybody right now in the wrestling room. And I think that's, going to ultimately raise everybody's level. And I think we've already started to see that a little bit.
And speaking of those young guys, one guy who's helping you out, grab these, the freshmen that are in now, of course, the guys that are going to come to the program in the future. You kept Sam Latona around. I wanted to bring him up as you guys made him your recruiting coordinator back this summer. What's he meant to the program, and as far as like what he can do for the program now in this new role where it's like, hey, maybe you're getting these young guys more acclimated to a Division I college program, being away from home, maybe they come cross country or just, getting acclimated to the new competition room, as you mentioned, where now it's elevated pretty much from weight to weight.
Yeah, I think one, it's nice to have somebody, Sam's age. It's kind of, he's a very mature kid, so we don't have to worry about some of the things that maybe you would otherwise with somebody who just graduated college and is kind of still in that peer group with the guys on the team. But it also is, I think it just gives those guys a little bit different ear to kind of tug on a little bit, if that makes sense. The rest of our coaching staff is older, right? And it's just a different kind of relationship that Sam has with the guys on the team. And I think he's able to get a little bit more out of them, maybe sometimes read them a little bit better. So it's been nice in that sense. He's been a leader in our program since day one, since the time he got here. Even as a freshman and as a young kid, he was just somebody that has that it factor when it comes to like the kind of person he is, the kind of leader he is, the kind of commitment level that he has towards whatever it is he's doing, whether it's, training and preparing to be the best wrestler that he can be, or, helping us with our recruiting efforts. And he's going to be a great coach. I think it's something he's always wanted to do. So, it was a really, a no-brainer to keep him around and have him on our staff and have him helping us. And we're going to try to keep him in Blacksburg for a long time. He's got a really bright future, and he's just a great human being.
So he's around for the foreseeable future. He's a Virginia Tech guy through and through. The other guys that are back, but of course they're still in the lineup. Guys like Caleb Henson. You already mentioned Eddie Ventresca, who's going to make his debut at the All-Star Classic coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll start with those guys because those are I would say your de facto big guns, so to speak, when it comes to your senior leadership guys who have a lot of accolades. Of course, Caleb winning an NCAA title just a couple of years ago, getting back to the finals last year. Eddie being a two-time All-American. What have those guys meant to the program in their time? I know Caleb winning that national title a couple of years ago really put you guys not on the map, maybe back on the map, considering after Mackay won it, what's that now, 6 years ago, winning a national title. So what have those two guys what have they done for the program, and how have they really put Virginia Tech on, I guess, like the mainstream part of college wrestling?
I think, what Caleb's done speaks for itself. He was fifth as a true freshman. He won it as a sophomore. He was second last year, and in a match it could have went either way. I think everybody recognizes that, right? Winning is hard sometimes, and things don't always go your way. Sometimes you need something to go your way a little bit. But he's more or less another coach in the room too. He's got one of the best wrestling minds that I've ever been around. His ability to just really absorb information technically, strategically, training wise, really, really bright, intelligent kid. And then absorb that, learn it, and then also be able to relay that to other guys on the team. And I think Caleb and Eddie are good friends. And I think, they've lived together for the last couple of years. I don't think they are this year, but the last 2 years they did. And I think Caleb was a huge help to Eddie in areas outside of the wrestling room, how to eat, when to go to sleep. Caleb's fanatical about the details of what it takes to be successful. And I think a lot of that's rubbed off on Eddie. And I think that's why we saw last year was, Eddie had a fantastic year, was really consistent. Right. And I think that was the biggest difference. His freshman year, he had a great end of the season, and you knew that you could see that he had the ability to do it. I've told him, I probably told him 20 times that year when he was a freshman, he's got national champion ability, but he needs to have national champion consistency, and he's got that now. So I think both those guys lead by example. They just, they're in this thing to win it. It's really important to them. So when you have that kind of leadership in terms of leading by example, that's the most important way to lead, is how you live and how you carry yourself and your behaviors. And people see that, right? And it's noticeable. And then when you go to compete and you can back it up and you have success on the mat in competition, I think that's the best thing that both of those guys do for our program, quite honestly.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because some people might forget, after that great run in 2023 for Eddie, he goes 2-7, battles injuries the very next year, but then he comes back really strong last year, finishes fifth in the country. And when you mentioned Caleb giving him, I guess that mindset or that inside look to here's what it takes to become a national champion. Maybe here's some stuff that you can help him modify, do off the mat. I would imagine that's probably the prime example over the last couple of years for you guys as a whole, like as an entire program. It's like, hey, you buy in on the mat and off the mat, you can have success like these two guys. And is it like a trickle down effect to the rest of the team, right? Like that?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, right? I mean, I think it's belief too, right? Guys, they see somebody in there and it gives them more belief and confidence that they can do it, right? And I think that started with Makai. And maybe even before Makai a little bit. But, when he won, it kind of opened the doors a little bit. Nobody had ever wanted Virginia Tech. And before 2006, Virginia Tech had like 5 All-Americans or something, or 4 All-Americans in the history of the program. It wasn't a lot. So, you got to have success first, right? But yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it. I just think, it starts everywhere, and every guy in our room is important. And even if they're not out wrestling on the weekends and getting their hand raised, how they approach things and how they bring with the kind of effort that they bring to practice and how they live on the weekends and all of those things, it all matters, man. Like, I think this is a game of inches, and we got to do everything we can to try to be as successful as we possibly can be. And that takes a team effort. It takes everybody pulling in the same direction, whether it's the head coach or whether it's, the 30th guy on our roster.
Some of the new guys are coming in. I'll kind of trickle down the roster here, but some senior transfers that are coming in, or that are in now in the program. Ethan Miller comes over from Maryland. Jaden Bullock comes over from Michigan. 2 very experienced guys, coming over from the Big Ten. You mentioned the freshmen before, how they have to get acclimated to a new location, new program, new teammates, coaching staff, etc. How have those guys adjusted, knowing that they've been around the block, so to speak, in college wrestling, but now they're like the two new guys in this new program, where it's like everyone else is kind of used to Blacksburg, but now they're the 2 new guys despite having all this experience.
Yeah, and we have another guy, Sergio Desiante from Tennessee Chattanooga, who transferred in as well. It's been great. Like, I think I think those guys picked Virginia Tech because they just felt like it was a good fit for them. They came on their visit, and I think they liked the culture. They liked their teammates. So I think they knew this would be an easy transition for them. And because of that, I think it has been an easy transition. I think, that's part of the game now, right? I mean, everybody's getting transfers. It just is what it is. And I think those guys have adjusted well to what we have going on. They're all tremendous workers, and they all care deeply about wrestling, and they came here to accomplish their goals. So it's been great. Between that and our freshman class, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, our freshman class is as good as we've ever had here. Both in terms of talent and in terms of commitment and work ethic and all of those things. So with all of those new additions, it's really, like I mentioned earlier, it's like the depth is pretty impressive to watch practice right now. When you're me and you're standing against the wall watching practice and watching these guys wrestle. So, it's been fun. It was a fun summer. To get these guys acclimated, it's been a great fall. It makes your job a lot easier when you got self-motivated guys that want to be great.
Without a doubt. Before I get to that freshman class, which, as you just alluded to, one of the best that you've seen in your time at Virginia Tech, some sophomores that are expected to make more jumps this year. For people who are paying close attention last year, guys like Sonny Sasso and Jimmy Mullen made some good impacts last year as freshmen / redshirt freshmen. When you look at what the type of jumps that they made over the summer, what have you seen from them, through the summer and obviously through these first couple of weeks of the preseason?
Yeah, Jimmy got big. Like and big in a good, like he put on some good weight. I think he was only weighing like 240 at the end of the year last year, 245 at the Nationals, and he came back at 273. Wow. And looks, just solid. So I think that will help him a lot. I think experience is going to help Jimmy a lot too. He had a good year. I don't think he felt great about the end of the year and how things went. He kind of got dinged up a little bit at the NCAAs, but I think just another year of experience, is big. And the thing you got to remember with both of those guys that you mentioned, they played football in high school, so they weren't wrestling all year round. They were probably wrestling 5-6 months out of the year, and then they were playing football for 5-6 months out of the year. So to have a couple of years where all they're doing is focusing on wrestling, I think is going to be huge for them. For Sonny, he's healthy. He's got to stay healthy, and that's going to be critical for him. But when he had his opportunities last year, before he got hurt, man, he looked really good. I mean, at Southeast Open, he was fantastic. So, excited to see him go compete and wrestle other guys. Sometimes in practice, you're just wrestling the same guys all the time, and it's a little bit tougher to evaluate, I think, from my standpoint. So, just fired up to watch these guys go compete. We've got some challenges in the early part of the season, and these guys will get tested, and we'll know a lot more about where they're at right now.
I mean, you obviously have more guys through that starting lineup that are high quality. I mean, I didn't even mention Mac Church, who I know is supposed to be a stalwart in the middle of your lineup as far as he is concerned. And I'll loop the freshman into this question as well. Just from a personal standpoint, coming from New Jersey, I've seen Ryan Burton up close. I know he was a big get for you guys. He's one of your more highly touted freshmen coming in as well. I mean, these young guys, I just feel like every single year, and this goes for pretty much all these top level programs of college wrestling, when the freshmen come in, especially if they're highly touted, the level is consistently raised year to year, where it's like maybe they are more college ready as soon as they step on campus in terms from a wrestling standpoint. What have you noticed from the young bucks in the Virginia Tech room so far?
Yeah, I think maturity is probably what separates them from a lot of freshman classes. Is these kids are super mature in terms of how they approach things. They're professionals already. Some guys come in and it takes them a little while to become a professional at this. And if you want to be, if you want to win a title and you want to win multiple titles, that's the way you have to approach this thing. And that means, you have to be disciplined in all aspects of your life. And that's what I've seen the most out of this. And like we've had classes where we've had a couple good guys, but we have, you mentioned Burton, but we've got Aaron Seidel, who's just, unbelievable. We got Colin Guy, who's fantastic. We got Drew Gorman out of Georgia, Noah Neininger. We got a kid named Ben Weeder. Those guys have just, when you have 6 guys or 7 guys come in and, they're among the hardest working guys in the room, I think everybody takes notice. And I think that, it kind of holds everybody to a higher standard. You can't let the guys that are younger than you, outwork you. And so that's been exciting. And we knew it was a good class, but you don't know until you get them here, until you see what they're all about. So those guys, they work really hard. They're incredibly talented. They've had success, at every level. They've won nationally in high school, and I don't think that's going to change. Obviously there's a transition going from high school to college, but those guys have all the intangible things that are required to be successful at this level, in addition to the pedigree and the talent that's required as well.
So as far as a general standpoint is concerned, the schedule, you already alluded to the dates that are coming up in just a couple of weeks as we sit here in the middle of October. It starts with Eddie going to the All-Star Classic on November 1st up in New Jersey at Rutgers. And then you mentioned the Southeast Open. The day after that, you guys got Bucknell on your schedule in terms of a dual meet. And then it's the National Duals, which we'll dive into in a sec. But I'm curious on how you guys get ready for it. And I know there's a competition the day right after the All-Star Classic, but for Eddie in particular, where this is a single match, he's the only guy from your squad that's going to be in this event. How does a guy get ready for that? Is it just like, hey, prepare like if it's any other match, or prepare like it's a duel? How does one guy lock in for, I guess, a showcase event like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's similar to what we're doing as a team. We have our guys kind of do a weight progression down, where we start, 4 or 5 weeks out, and we have them hit a weight, and then it gets a little bit lower. And then, when we do match days. So, Eddie is like this week, he'll make scratch, cause I think that's just, the rest of the guys are going to be they'll have a little bit of like 1% or 2%. I'm sorry. But Eddie wants to get down early and just kind of feel that, because obviously the opponent it's different, right? Because you're going to an open tournament, the rest of these guys in wrestling, and that's kind of their first official weigh-in. But for very few guys, is that going to be a 2-hour weigh-in? It's just different, right? And typically you're not starting with that level of opponent right out of the gate. So, so Eddie's got to be, I think, a little bit more on point with his preparation in terms of, dialing in his routine, his weight cut, and the kind of things that we talked about that really, I think, made Eddie consistent last year. Are what he's dialed into right now, and being mindful and intentional with how he's approaching the preparation for this event. And coaches are obviously involved in that, and my staff, and but yeah, it's definitely a little bit different.
Yeah. It is pretty cool cool, and also I would imagine challenging as well, because you have to get yourself into that mindset of, let's make scratch weight, basically be prepared now, 2+ weeks out, but it also could pay off in the end. So, mentioned the Southeast Open, Bucknell, you have them on November 7th. And then I think the one everyone is circling, at least a lot of fans are circling, are the national duels out in Tulsa, November 15th and 16th. You guys are going to open up against Minnesota in the first round. So before we actually just get into facing Minnesota, of course, a great matchup to start things off in November. When you were going through the process of, I guess, accepting the bid for the national duels, I believe you guys were automatically in and weren't one of the lottery ball teams. When you get the word about an event like this is happening beginning of the year, it's a little bit more different than, I would say, other previous, collegiate duel events or journeyman events, where these are the quote unquote best of the best, at least early on in the season, to wrestle for, again, a prize pool of money as well in the NIL era. What was the process like for you guys when they approached you and were like, hey, you're in this event as long as you accept it?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it a little bit as a staff. I mean, I think we were, we certainly were leaning towards being a part of it, but you have to evaluate things too. And it, kind of make sure it makes sense for your team and what we're trying to do. It's going to change. It changes the cadence of the season maybe a little bit, right? To have an event like that is early on in the season. I think there's some other things. So we'll see where Vegas is at. I don't know that Vegas, I think, probably a lot of teams that typically compete in Vegas that are in the national duels maybe won't be at Vegas. So I think it might affect the quality a little bit of that event potentially. I may be wrong on that, but so there's a lot of things that we kind of took into consideration and thought about, and just wanted to make sure it made sense for us and our program. But at the end of the day, I just think it's a great opportunity to showcase wrestling, to showcase our program, an opportunity to compete against the best teams in the country, right? And kind of give us an evaluation point for our guys too, right? I mean, the season is about making adjustments, and I think that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to see a lot of the best competition in the country throughout the course of the season, and make adjustments as needed for guys individually, and figure out where we need to get better as a team and where guys need to get better individually, to make sure by the end of the year, we kind of have all of our areas of concern or areas we need to improve at. We got that stuff buttoned up a little bit. So that's kind of how we approach it. But yeah, we're excited to go out and wrestle, and Minnesota is going to be a great challenge for us. I haven't dove too deep into like the individual matchups or anything like that yet, but they're coming off a great season last year. Coach Agam does a great job out there. He's a buddy of mine. So excited to have an opportunity to wrestle them. They're actually coming to the Southeast Open this year too, which is oddly enough. So we'll kind of see them 2 out of the first 3 weekends.
Yeah, you mentioned how the cadence of the schedule, as you put it, is already getting changed a little bit, considering this is a big event to essentially kick off the season, a couple weeks after the All-Star Classic, which is exhibition. When you see a high-quality opponent like Minnesota in the first round, and we don't have to get into, obviously, individual matchups yet, a month out, but it is funny where, you guys are considered one of the better teams in college wrestling, and as are they. And then you look around the corner where, win or loss, you're going to have another high-quality opponent like Ohio State in the next round. Or, if it was a wrestleback round, Ohio State or Wyoming, that is potentially one of your next 2 opponents right after you wrestle Minnesota. And there's a lot of duels where I believe it's over the course of 2 days. So you're going to wrestle 4 high-quality matches regardless of the direction of the bracket. Is this almost like a de facto NCAA tournament, just team oriented, just really early on? And I mean, are you fine with having this type of measuring stick so early on?
Yeah, I don't know that it's ideal timing,
Mhm.
but like, it's like everybody talks about this event, and there's not a great time to do it.
Yeah.
Where are you going to fit it in? And I just think that's something people need to consider, right? Like, the thought of having a dual meet championship is great, and I think it would be awesome, and I think it would be great for the sport and for our fans. But at the same time, it's hard to find a time. There's no great time to do it, right? And this is maybe as good as any time. But that being said, it's also it's in November. The NCAA championships are in March, right? Our season's kind of long, so we're approaching it like every other event in terms of we're not going to make it more than it is. We don't make the NCAA championships more than it is. It's a wrestling match, right? And I think when you make things bigger than they are, I don't know that that's the right approach. I mean, I think sometimes you want to make it smaller, so it's a wrestling match. We're excited to go compete. We're excited to go wrestle against some of the best teams and best individuals in the country, just like we always are. And it's all about improvement and getting better. And that's how we're approaching it.
Yeah, regardless, really looking forward to it. You guys against Minnesota and the entire event, of course, as well. And Eddie Ventresca taking on Sheldon Seymour of Lehigh in that All-Star Classic in a couple weeks. Just on a broad question about Virginia Tech, obviously there's been a lot of buzz lately about your program. You mentioned the freshman class coming in, one of the best that you've seen in your time in Blacksburg. Of course, other recruits, trying to maybe find their way to Blacksburg as well. I guess just for Blacksburg in general, where people think of Virginia Tech, I think mostly first as a football school, within the confines of the ACC. But you guys as a wrestling program have really elevated the sport outside of, the Big Ten and the other historic programs in the Big 12. And where ACC wrestling, where it's like you guys, NC State, and of course the others starting to, I guess, rise to that, I mentioned it before, that mainstream level. What has really stood out to you about Blacksburg and what you guys have done at Virginia Tech, particularly, I guess, over the last 5-6 years?
Have you ever been to Blacksburg?
No, I have not. And funny enough, my mother-in-law is a Virginia Tech alum, and we've always teased, maybe there's a trip to Blacksburg in the near future.
You should come check it out. It's a special place, and I think that's part of the reason that we have success. It's not the only reason, but it's definitely, people come down here, and it's an awesome place, man. I'm telling you, there's no place like it. Just everything that goes along with living here, being a Virginia Tech Hokie, the community, geographically where we're located, the campus is as nice as any campus in the country. So I think, when you combine that with the fact that we recruit really, really hard, and I think I don't know that there's another staff in the country that works as hard on the recruiting trail as we work. We're just relentless in terms of, going to see kids and when we have them on campus. Really making sure we have, they have a great visit here. They spend a lot of time with the team, and our coaching staff and our coaching staff's families spend a lot of time with the families. Mm-hmm. And I think that resonates with a lot of kids that's what they're looking for. And we've had a lot of success, right? I mean, it's great when recruiting works out, because we've finished second on a lot of really good kids in recruiting. And seconds, I always say, it's the worst place you want to be, because that means you put in a ton of work, and it didn't, the result is the same as if you were 22nd. So it's great when you work really hard, and then you do get these guys. It's just part of the way it works. I mean, you have to go after guys, and you have to take those risks. But we've been fortunate that we've been able to land some really high level kids over the course of the last several years, Right. And then when they get here, they have to develop and they have to buy in, but the culture is really, really strong here. I think it's as good as it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting, man. Like I said, there's a lot to sell. When I came down here to look at this position, which at the time was the associate head coach, when Coach Dresser got hired in 2006, mm-hmm. It was pretty easy to see that Virginia Tech, I was walking around here, I'm like, this is not going to be hard to recruit. Like, it's, I'd been coaching at Michigan and other places, and what we had to sell was pretty impressive. So that plays into it. And I think just everything else that goes along with being a part of our program plays into it too. And we want kids that want to be here and want to be a part of it and feel like this is a good fit for them and it makes sense for them. And it's certainly about wrestling, but it's not all about wrestling.
Yeah. You've been at Virginia Tech for nearly 20 years at this point. You just mentioned the 06 time frame where you weren't the head coach yet, but then you end up getting on this onto the staff under Coach Dresser, and it's funny how you mentioned when you first got to Blacksburg, you're like, oh, not this is going to be easy, but it's like, oh, we could easily sell this place, sell this program, and sell this culture and what we're going to have in store for this year and years to come. When you go into a job like that with that type of mentality, especially considering you guys got your first national champion under your watch in 2019 with Mekhi Lewis, and now Caleb, obviously the second national champion. There's more success to come, since then and onward. But when you first got there wasn't much history with Virginia Tech. I think you mentioned 5 or 6 career All-Americans in the program's history to that point. What did it take from you, the staff at the time, and I guess maybe the buy-in from the administration, going back almost 20 years to almost build it into what it is today?
It took a lot of damn hard work.
Yeah.
You gotta work like every day. When Kevin was here and me and Kevin, I think both have tremendous work ethics. So, we worked really, really hard to build it. It didn't happen overnight too, but, we were able to eventually land a couple kids that were, developed for us. And then you get a few kids that kind of changed the program a little bit. We got a kid named Peter Yates out of Georgia, who ended up being at that time, he was a kind of a program changer for us. He was a 2-time All-American. And now that's, obviously we expect more than that out of our guys, but Pete, just changed the level of things. And then we got Devin Carter, and Devin took it to another level. Devin people don't know how good Devin Carter was. Truly, he was a 3-time NCAA All-American. He was round of 12 as a true freshman, and he just did some incredible things. And so he kind of elevated us to another level. And then we got Mekhi, and Mekhi was. Then there was other guys in between there too. There was Jared Hod, who was a 3-time All-American and an NCAA finalist, and was kind of a guy that was off the radar. He wasn't, he was like, I think maybe an 85th ranked kid in the country coming out of high school. You get a kid named, like Nick Brissetta out of St. Paris Graham, Ohio. He's a 3-time All-American for us. Ty Walls from St. Edward High School in Ohio. He's a 3-time All-American for us. And then you get Mekhi, and Mekhi was another one. I mean, Mekhi was good in high school for sure, but he wasn't, he wasn't super highly touted. I think people in New Jersey and, were probably aware of how talented Mekhi was, right? But he was almost overshadowed by one of his own teammates on his high school team. So Mekhi coming in and winning the Nationals as a freshman is like, wow, right? That was a big deal for us. And that was something that, again, elevated us to another level. And then you get Caleb, who, again, was, had a lot of success in high school, but he changed things for us too, So, that's just kind of the way it works, man. And I'm just a big believer when you work really, really hard, good things happen. And you got to keep stacking those days on top of each other and kind of grinding through it. And sometimes it's hard to see that you're going to have that success, when you're not having it and when you're kind of in the trenches. But our sport rewards hard work more than any other sport there is. And I think that's the same, from a coaching standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, in all other areas of developing your program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mekhi Lewis come from Bound Brook, New Jersey, where he had him and Stephon Glasgow. I think that they won multiple state titles, and they were in back-to-back weights, and it was just an insane thing to see from such a small school up in Central Jersey. And the fact that Mekhi transitioned to Virginia Tech and won right away, testament to hard work and obviously the work that you guys have put in as a program. Going back to the administration, I guess the buy-in, where people think of Virginia Tech, ACC, as I mentioned before, football school, that. In the ACC, I guess in general for wrestling is smaller. Obviously, there's only 6-7 schools in the conference, and that includes new member Stanford, which is of course on the other coast. Which everyone in every sport's like, wow, that's an interesting ad for the ACC. But as far as the administration buy-in, especially in the time of transfer portal, NIL, and of course at On3, we're on top of the portal and the NIL portions of college athletics because it's such a huge part of every sport, especially with football and basketball. Then eventually it just starts trickling down to every other sport. How have you guys been able to, I guess, maybe not change your coaching and recruiting methods or maybe your approach to the program, but how have you adapted to those parts of college athletics now where it's a lot, there's a lot of transactions. It's transactional. It's more aligned to pro sports, I guess, in this day and age. And again, it's constantly changing as we've seen over the last 5-6 years.
I think number one, getting back to the buy-in from the administration and the alumni and your donors, we're fortunate. We're at a place where people care deeply about Virginia Tech athletics, and whatever any sport that wins here is going to get supported. Yeah, they just are. I mean, it doesn't matter because people love the Hokies around here. There's not a professional sports team in the state of Virginia, so there's just opportunity and passion for our athletic department. And especially when you start winning. And fortunately for me, I've been here for so long that I just have so many relationships that I've been able to develop over the course of the last 20 years that we've been able to get a lot of people involved in our program and a lot of people excited about our program. We've been able to grow our fan base. It's pretty incredible looking back at where it was 20 years ago and where it is now, we're getting 6,000 plus people at dual meets, at this point. And I think that's going to continue to grow. And when you put a good product out there, people want to be a part of it. And when you treat them right, people want to be a part of it. So we've had as we've had more success, we've had more support and more buy-in from both our administration, from our fans, and from our donors. And the landscape of college sports has changed, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. So, if you don't want to adapt, you're probably not going to be very good. And, we got to continue to change as the rules change. It's a moving target a little bit right now. The NCAA is all over the place with what you can do and what you can't do. Right. But yeah, we're gonna hustle. We're gonna try to continue to get the best kids in the country, and that's we're in it to win it, and we're gonna continue to be in it to win it, and that's how we're approaching this thing.
A couple more for you, Coach, and again, I appreciate your time this morning. I'll give you I guess maybe more of a loaded question, and obviously it relates to Virginia Tech, and it could be something small or something drastic for the sport, but there's always discussion about what does NCAA wrestling need to do to take that next step towards, mainstream success, a la football, basketball, which, anybody could say maybe that's unattainable because football and basketball are just so far ahead in terms of the American sports lexicon, so to speak. But what do you think wrestling can do, whether it's immediately, very soon, where it's like, all right, this is now where the sport, I guess, maybe this is a bad phrase, but maybe it takes itself more seriously, and it's like, okay, now the sport is higher. The casual fans tune in, and now wrestling is a sport where more schools need to have it. It's not a sport that's going to be on the chopping block for some schools. What do you think is that big step towards, I guess, meaningful change for the sport?
Number one, I think our sport's in a great spot, really. You look at dual meets all over the place, right? I mean, there's a lot of people coming out and watching wrestling. I do think you have to have like really meaningful matches at home on campuses. The one thing I don't love about this national duels is it takes those matchups off campus. I've just seen personally how having big time dual meets on our campus has elevated our program. People want to come see us wrestle Ohio State and Missouri, and we have Oklahoma State at home this year. So I think having those kind of opportunities for your fans to come watch and support you in those kind of events against those kind of opponents are meaningful. And you even see it in like conference football now, right? Like it's unbelievable. There's no fluff anymore, right? These Big Ten teams are playing like, whatever it is, 10 game Big Ten schedule or whatever it is. And same in the ACC. So I think that's important for our program. I think that's going to put people in the stands. That's going to create interest. We're never going to be what football is. I mean, people just have to accept that. We're probably never going to be what basketball is. I think people just have to accept that. But I think we need to continue and grow, and you got to have great leadership within the programs. You have to have a perspective of this. When you're sitting in my chair and you're the head coach, there's a lot more to this job than going in and teaching guys how to defend high crotches and how to score takedowns and the wrestling side of things. It's way more than that. You have to be visible in the community. You have to be visible. Home football games to me are like, those are just opportunities to go solicit from donors. I'm up in I go up in the suites and I'm up there, every single football game trying to get to know people and donors. And I think when you develop those relationships and you have that kind of approach, good things are going to happen for you. And I just think we have to keep doing what we're doing. I think wrestling's going in the right direction. I think the quality right now is like, man, these kids coming out of high school are unbelievable. It's a good time to be part of the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree for the most part right there, especially when it comes to the level of those kids. We have high schoolers on the world team right now. So it just goes to show you how the qualities are going to increase year in and year out. A couple rapid fire questions before I let you go. You can give a long answer, short answer, however you want to do it. This one maybe a longer answer. Craziest thing you've seen from the coaching corner, whether it was a dual meet or a tournament. It could have been, maybe somebody threw a brick 20 feet or a referee stumbled. Any crazy moments that really stick out to you from the coaching corner?
There are, but I'm not gonna talk about it because it make people look bad.
Hey, I'll take that. That actually is a great answer. So
I'll tell you here. I'll give you one. Okay, here was, and this was Coach Freyer threw a brick. It was probably the best brick throw I ever threw. Mekhi Lewis. It was in the blood round at the NCAA a couple years ago. Yeah. And the guy locked up a cradle on Mekhi, and kid from Army, and they actually, as Mekhi was going over, his foot hit the coach in the corner. They didn't go out of bounds, but it technically was like, the action stops. Right. And he saw that and threw the brick. So it was like, I know they weren't happy about it, but it was well for us. So that was kind of crazy.
I think I actually remember that moment. Was that 2-3 years ago now?
Yeah, it might have been Mekhi's junior, senior year.
I think I do remember seeing that from up top, up in the booth, and I do remember the. Now that you mentioned the brick throw, I think it's starting to come back to memory. So maybe get him on the football or baseball team with that throw. Best food spot in Blacksburg.
Best food spot, probably Cabo Fish Taco.
All right, if I make a trip to Blacksburg, I'm going to write that one down for sure. NCAA's dream location. I'm a big Florida guy. I would love to see the tournament go down to Florida.
Yeah, somewhere in the South. I'd say Atlanta, Georgia, maybe. Tampa, Florida would be awesome. Charlotte, North Carolina. Anywhere in the South where the weather's a little bit warmer, I think would be great.
Yeah, no more snow or rain would be good for a freezing rain, I should say, would be good for me. As far as the Virginia Tech logos are concerned, what do you prefer, the VT or I see you have the Hokie on your polo? Which one do you prefer?
I'm probably more of a VT guy. Yeah. I like the script Hokies where it's kind of in a script. That's a new thing. We've been rocking. That one's good. But yeah, I'm not so much a Hokie bird guy. I know I'm wearing it today, but I'm more of a VT guy.
I got two more for you. Favorite singlet you guys wear?
Probably our black ones. Yeah. Black, and we incorporate some Hokie stone on the back. Anybody who's a Virginia Tech fan knows what Hokie stone is. It's our campus is. It's every building pretty much is the same kind of limestone that's mined locally here, and they call it Hokie stone. It's pretty cool.
I like that. All right, last one. Can you still take everyone down on your team in the room when you're rolling around?
No.
No, not anymore. Not even close. Oh,
51 years old. That ship sailed a long time ago. I can go hard for a couple minutes though.
That's pretty much it. We'll turn the matches into 3-minute matches in total. How about that? Maybe you can still take everybody down.
Still ain't scoring many takedowns.
I love it. Tony Robie with me here on On3 Wrestling. Coach, I really appreciate your time today. Good luck this season. I'll have to make a trip to Blacksburg, and again, looking forward to catching up later down the line this season.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.